Physical reality, as you call it, as we have said many times, is a reflection of your state of being, your state of consciousness. There really is nothing outside of you. You're not really in physical reality. Physical reality is within you. It's within your consciousness. It is a concept that you are experiencing of yourself from a certain perspective. However, we understand that the way in which you have chosen to experience your particular dimension of physical experience is as though you are within a realm of space and time, as you call it. But what is that exactly? What is space? What is time? Again, while they are illusionary, you still create the effect of them, the experience of them in your life experience as a physical being, a physicalized being, so to speak, where you have taken your energy, the high frequency energy of your spirit nature, your non-physical nature, and in a sense have lowered that frequency, crystallized that frequency down into what you call the experience, the matrix of, the structure of physical reality. Now again, this is going on within your consciousness. You're not actually in any place really called physical reality. It's all within. Nevertheless, we understand that the way you chose to experience this makes it appear to be outside of you. So the thing to remember, in order to give yourself more opportunity to choose and experience the kind of physical reality you prefer, the kind of physical reality that you say is more in alignment with your true vibration, is to begin to see and experience physical reality as a reflection, similar to the idea of the reflection that exists in your glass mirrors. You know that when you look at your reflection in a glass mirror, you know that you're not really over there. And you know that if you want to change the reflection in the glass mirror, you don't go to the reflection and attempt to make it change. You must change yourself in order to see the change in the reflection. So, physical reality, being a reflection, being a hall of mirrors, operates in much the same kind of modality. Any change you wish to see in the so-called reflection, the outer reality, must begin within the inner reality, which is you, within your consciousness, within your vibration, within your state of being.
What we call cultures. I'm this culture, I'm a black South African, I'm a Hindu or whatever. These are different sub-softwares of the human software. We are led to believe that what identifies us with the body and what identifies us with the body being us is whether we're a man or a woman. Again, being a man or a woman is not what we are, it's the experience we're having. It's the same with emotions, where we think the emotions of who we are. But you can fundamentally change your emotional state through drugs, through chemicals, through things like mercury. Mercury in fillings can change your personality. Can change your personality by drinking the shite in food and drink, these chemical cocktails. That's what's happening to so many kids. How can even emotions as we know them be what we are when chemicals can change the emotions that we have? It's to do with the way we decode reality. And we are receiver transmitters of information. Like we're taking from the worldwide cosmic web and we're adding to it. And how interesting and appropriate that one of the great ways or great means of receiving and transmitting is through crystals, quartz crystals. And it turns out the human body is a gigantic liquid quartz crystal. The membrane of every cell, and we have trillions of them, is a quartz crystal, a liquid crystal. The earth is a gigantic crystal. Every grain of sand, for goodness sake, is a crystal. And the earth too is receiving and transmitting information within this cosmic web. DNA is a receiver, transmitter of information, and it's made that way. This is an article on DNA. From the characteristic form of this giant molecule, a wound double helix, the DNA represents an ideal electromagnetic antenna. On one hand, it is elongated and thus a blade which can take up very well electrical pulses. On the other hand, seen from above, it has the form of a ring and thus is a very magnetical antenna. We are receiving and transmitting all the time through what we think is the body computer. And the energetic auric field connects into us through what we call chakra points, from a word, Sanskrit word meaning wheels of light. And these connect into what we call the physical body through the endocrine system of glands, two of which include the pituitary and the pineal gland, which together make up what we call the third eye. Now, anything that can shut these down holds us in five-sense reality.
We have to understand what a belief is. We talk about belief. What is a belief? Belief is the marriage. It is a union of thought and emotion. Thought and emotion. And now we have to define thought and emotion. This is an image from an ancient Sanskrit text. It shows the energy centers of the body, the chakras. I know you all are familiar with chakras. They say that thought happens in the upper chakras, right here. This is thought. This is where we imagine the quantum possibility. The emotion happens in the creative center, in the lower chakras. This is emotion. And they say our emotions are only two, love and fear. Love and the opposite of love. So when we think a thought in our mind, we fuel that thought. We give our thought life through the love or the fear that we place into the thought. And when we do that, we create a feeling. And now we have a definition for feeling. Feeling is the union, the marriage of emotion and thought. What we think of a possibility and our love or our fear of that thought. Does that make sense? Is that good? This is important because we're going to use this. Does this make sense? Okay? What is the one energy center in the body that does not have the circle? What is the one center that we have not talked about here? Precisely, the heart. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling doesn't happen in the mind. Feeling doesn't happen in the lower, well, a little bit, but not much in the lower centers. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling and belief are connected. Feeling and belief. So in our hearts, we have hate, sadness, joy, compassion. These are feelings. These are not emotions. To have hate, sadness, joy, compassion, we must have a thought and then the love or the fear for that thought that creates these feelings. So now we have a definition of feeling. Feeling is the union of thought and emotion. You're going to see this in a 2,000-year-old text this afternoon. Exactly the same thing. So our belief translates the quantum possibilities that we imagine into the physical reality of our world. Belief is what translates those possibilities into the atoms of our world. The quantum possibility exists as waves only. But this world is made of atoms. So I think you're going to like what you're going to see. Do you remember a long time ago, when I was in school, and maybe when you were in school, we were told that the atom looks like this. Looks like a little solar system. Long time ago, remember? And we were taught that the atom is made of things. A thing in the center and things that orbit, things that circulate. Okay? That's not what scientists believe today. Now the atom, they believe, looks like this. It looks like energy. The atom no longer looks like things. It looks like waves of energy rather than particles of things. Now this is very important. You're going to see why. I think you will like what you're going to see in just a moment. So just work with me. So the quantum atom is made of waves of energy rather than particles of things. And this is very important. This is very important. If you want to change an atom, you have to change the energy that the atom lives in. If you want to change the stuff, the physical stuff of our world, you must change the energy that that stuff exists within. Is that okay? Is that good? Does that make sense to you? You okay with that? Okay. We're going slowly because something big is about to happen here. Einstein said this very well. Einstein actually said the field that connects everything together is what he called the governing agency of the particle. Einstein said the field is what determines how the atom behaves. It's in the field. The sole governing agency is what Albert Einstein said. So the field that we're talking about, the field is made of electrical energy. It's made of magnetic energy, two energies. The field that holds everything together. This is out of a traditional text, a traditional physics text. Look at what this says. This says if you change the electric field, that you will change the way the atom behaves, and there's actually a name for this. It is called the Stark effect. So if you change the electrical field, the Stark effect, you change the atom, or if you change the magnetic field, it's called the Zeeman effect, you change the atom. So all this is saying is that science knows today if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change the atom. Okay, that's good? Okay, watch what happens. What organ in your body produces the strongest electrical field in your body? Guess. Okay, see, I told you would like this. Okay, our world is made of electrical and magnetic energy, the atom. And the science says if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change that atom. Okay, there is one organ in your body that produces the strongest electrical field and the strongest magnetic field in your body. Here's a clue. I'll give you a clue. Right there. Your heart. And it's where you have the feeling. The feeling that you had when you saw the baby girls. That feeling that we call a feeling is actually creating waves of electrical and magnetic energy in your heart that changes your body and changes your world. But you don't have to know that because you simply had a feeling. And this is what the ancients understood. and what they left in their temples, in their texts, in the monasteries, in the language of their time. They understood this. Our heart, look at this. The human heart produces the strongest electrical and magnetic fields in the body. Some people said the brain. The brain does produce these fields, but look, the heart's electrical field is 100 times stronger than the brain. 100 times stronger than the brain. The heart's magnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. And the references, the technical references, I won't read them here. They're on the website, my website, if you would like the technical references. But you see what's happening here. Our heart produces the fields that change our world and change our body. Can you see that so far? Beliefs create the electrical waves. Beliefs change those magnetic waves. What you believe about yourself, what you believe about me, what you believe about your world, about your relationship to God, about peace on this earth is creating what is happening on this earth right now. Beliefs change our physical world. Beliefs change matter. Now I have to stop and ask the question, does this make sense so far?
And therefore, it's hardly surprising that it's this information that I'm going to be talking about now that has been most suppressed and most fiercely suppressed of all. Because if we realize who we really are and the nature of our true power to control our own destiny and control the direction of our lives, then the ability of a few to control the many becomes impossible. This is why we've had such emphasis over these thousands of years on creating religions and other prisons of the mind which have divorced us and kept us apart from the knowledge that would set us free. And we really come to another opposame, religion and science. As I document in my books, the same secret societies that created religion, all of them, were the same that created what we call science, this idea, excuse me if I insult your intelligence, that this world is all there is and we come from oblivion, and after a period in awakened consciousness of a few seconds or 100 years, we go back to oblivion. Get letters after your name for coming up for that, you know, it's amazing. And a big salary. Now, these two things appear to be opposites. One saying God and all this stuff, and you must do what God says. And this one saying there is no God, and it's kind of, you're just a cosmic accident, darling. They have many things in common. They have one key thing in common. They're both saying that control of our lives is not here, it's out here somewhere. What science is saying is always just a random accident, mate. Just your luck. And over here in religion, it's saying, well, yeah, your destiny is controlled by whether you serve and do what God says. Oh, by the way, me and my long frock and nice collar, I know what God wants, so do what I tell you and you'll be fine, darling. And so religion was used for so long, and still is used massively, to control people and shut their minds off from the reality of who they are and the nature of their true power, life itself indeed. And when, particularly during the last couple of centuries, people began in increasing numbers not to buy that little scam, along came this world is all there is science to pick them up. And the idea of both, and indeed the creators of both, were high initiates of the secret society and mystery school network who knew that both versions of life were a load of old crap. If we don't buy either, we can see what they're trying to keep us from. We are given the choice of being controlled by God or being basically a cosmic accident, okay? What we are not given the choice to see from early in our lives, unless we have enlightened parents, is that we are not a physical body and we are not just an entity that lives in a physical world. We are everything that exists. Increasingly open-minded science, and my goodness me, it's about time we had some of that, is starting to confirm what mystics and people that talk about this have been saying for thousands of years. That everything that exists in the whole of creation, in this dimension and others, is the same energy in different states of being. And the vibrational state of that energy decides what that energy will manifest as. And therefore, we are not the physical body. That is our genetic spacesuit through which we experience this world. What we are is multidimensional consciousness that animates that body. And the question is, how much of that consciousness are we going to access? A little bit or massive amounts of it? We have a connection between our spiritual energy self and our physical self, which is called the chakra system. It comes from a Sanskrit word meaning wheels of light, and the Sanskrit language comes from the Aryan race that came out of the Caucasus Mountains. You know the score by now. Now, what these chakra vortexes do, and there's 7 main ones, but many others, is that they interpenetrate our levels of being. So we have a mental level, which is an energy field. It's a frequency range. That's our rational thought, as they call it. We have an emotional level, which is another frequency range. We have a spiritual level, which is the higher dimensions of ourselves. And these levels are interpenetrated by these chakra vortexes, these wheels of light. And therefore, an imbalance on one level is, through this vortex system, transferred to other levels. This is why when we get very emotionally stressed, the first thing that stops happening is we stop thinking straight. We stop thinking straight because the imbalance on the emotional level has been transferred to the mental level, and bang, 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 we go. Now, if this imbalance goes on, this emotional imbalance, it's transferred eventually to the lowest level of this system, which is the physical level. And it manifests in the physical body as a chemical reaction. Now, it's at this point that modern medicine comes in with its drugs and scalpels at the point of the chemical reaction. Therefore, it is treating the symptom of the energy imbalance, the emotional imbalance, not the cause. And I remember where I lived on the Isle of Wight, a little island off the south coast of England, the doctor's practice there sent out a letter to everybody who was in that practice, the patients and stuff. And it kind of encapsulates the whole thing magnificently. It said, patients are reminded that appointments with the doctor are for 5 minutes only, and this is not a time to discuss your other problems. What has been so massively missed is there are other problems creating the emotional imbalance and distress that are causing the physical illness. So if you look at the human entity as a whole, you're looking at a very different vision of who we are and health and every other aspect of life than if you think that we're just a physical body. And these chakra vortexes are drawing in, particularly what they call the base chakra, vast amounts of energy which we can create with in ways that I'll come to in a second. The more these chakra vortexes are closed down, the less energy they're drawing in, the less energy we have to work with and create with. And so from this high level of knowledge that I've been talking about over thousands of years, at the peak of this brotherhood network, they understand these things. And so much of the manipulation of human emotion and human thinking, human perception and human attitudes has been designed to close these vortexes down so we access a fraction of multidimensional infinity, this infinite mind that we're part of. There was an American comedian called Bill Hicks, great guy, died in 1994, who summed up this whole concept of life I'm talking about in this way, because he was a very bright man. He said, matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. We're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is just a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. And that's the key. What we imagine ourselves to be is what we physically create. So if we can be manipulated to imagine ourselves as ordinary, then we'll create ordinary lives. When the penny drops that we are all extraordinary, we live extraordinary lives, and this manipulation is over. We're like droplets of water in an ocean of consciousness. We're individual to an extent, just like droplets of water are individual. You can hold one in your hand. But those droplets together make up the ocean. Without the droplets, there is no ocean. It's the same with this infinite energy mind we call creation, God, whatever you want to call it Ethel, I'm not bothered. We are not part of that infinity. We are that infinity if we open ourselves up to reconnect with it. And this is where we come back to the eggshell. Because most people are manipulated through fear and sense of limitation to shut off from that infinity and all its infinite wisdom, love, understanding that is available to be tapped any time. Because it's us. Wherever you stand in infinity, you are at the center of infinity. So everything that exists is everything that exists. I am everything that exists. So are you. The more you realize that, the more you open up to the full infinity of who you are. Your life transformed. Your vision of yourself is transformed. Your vision of everything is transformed. The more you see yourself as just an individual, ordinary little man and woman in the street. I got no power, mate. What can I do? Once you do that, you are shutting yourself off from the infinity of who you are, and you become a fraction of what you are. And then you are able to be controlled, but only then. Which is why this understanding has been so suppressed. That's where most people live their lives.
Experiment number 3. This is a paper released in 1993 by an organization called the Institute of Heart Math, H-E-A-R-T-M-A-T-H, Heart Math. We'll talk about them later today. But what they showed is this. Heart Math showed around every human heart there is a field of energy that we can measure. It looks like this. It's between 5 feet and 8 feet in diameter. How much in meters? How many meters is that? Do you know, 5 to 8 approximately?
Divide by 3.
How much?
Divide by 3.
Divide by 3. So 2.5 to 8, 3, 2, 4, 2.5 to 3, 3.5 meters. Okay, 2.5 to 3.5 meters approximately around every human heart. This field is there. And I asked the scientists the question. I said, if this field is there around every human heart, and it's so powerful, why would that field stop at only 2 to 3 meters? And they said, that is the limitation of our equipment. They said, in nature, the field around the human heart extends many, many miles from where your heart actually exists. So there are approximately 1,000 people in this room. If you are within 2 to 3 meters of another person, and you are, there are 1,000 hearts, but one field. One heart field. And that field is so real that we will measure it and use it after lunch. We can actually measure the field and we'll use it after lunch. And as you change the way that you feel in your heart, you will see the field in this room change on the screen. So that's what we'll do this afternoon. Okay, so they know this field is here. The question that they asked was, what effect does our heart have on the DNA of our bodies? You all have seen DNA as a double helix. And what scientists have found is that some emotions will relax the helix. Some emotions will contract that helix, tighten it. When the DNA is relaxed, you are healthy. You have a strong immune system. Your DHEA levels are high. And when the DNA is tight, your immune system suffers. Your DHEA levels are low. So here's the experiment. They're asking the question, what happens if we change the way we feel in our hearts, what effect does it have on the DNA? And here's the experiment. What they found was in the presence of positive emotions, gratitude, appreciation, love, compassion, all the things that you would expect as positive emotions, look at the DNA, it relaxed in a positive, life-affirming way. In the presence of anger, jealousy, hate, rage, frustration, the DNA was tight like a little top. And all that the people did was have a feeling. They had a feeling and they changed the DNA in their body. This is the actual research report. Look at the words. It says, individuals trained in feelings of deep love and appreciation were able to intentionally change the shape of their DNA. And all they did was have a feeling, and by having the right feeling, the right belief in their heart, they changed the DNA in their body. They changed their immune system. They changed their hormone levels of DHEA. They changed their lives. The study goes on to say this. It says that human emotion produces effects which defy conventional laws of physics and their relationship to space and time. What does that mean? Very simply, it means that you and I can create a feeling in our bodies, and when we have that feeling, we are no longer limited by the laws of physics as we know those laws today. Maybe some laws, but not those laws. We are no longer limited by the laws of biology as we know those laws today. And all we do is create a feeling in our bodies. That's all we do. That's how powerful you are. Okay, this is where I wanted to be before we take our bathroom break. Here is the bottom line to these discoveries. Number one, it says that emotion changes the DNA in our bodies. You saw that, right? Emotion changed the DNA. The DNA changes the matter of the world. The DNA changes the photons, the stuff our world is made of. If you take out the middle section, what we're now saying is that emotion changes matter. And you saw the experiments that prove that to your mind. When the heart has feelings of gratitude and appreciation, it changes the DNA, and the DNA is changing the stuff of our world. And when the heart is having anger, hate, jealousy, rage, it changes the DNA in another way, and it affects our world. These are the experiments that show us what the ancient traditions always said. And that is that you have a power inside of your body that affects the world beyond your body.
Time and space in that sense are very flexible, very malleable, as many more of you are now finding out, even in your own reality. Time and space in your reality, as you move forward in your exploration of consciousness and spirituality, are becoming more malleable, more flexible, more plastic, more slippery. Many of you are beginning to realize that you're having different kinds of experiences of space and time now. More synchronicity coming into your lives as you begin to expand your understanding of consciousness. As you begin to live more in the moment. As you begin to realize and manifest the idea of your dream, your passion, your joy, your excitement. This is part and parcel of this whole so-called new age of awareness on your planet, which we are more than happy to assist you in co-creating. The idea of this transmission, specifically, as has been explained to you to some degree already, is to create an understanding of how you create your physical reality, how you have created your physical reality, how you can create your physical reality to be more in alignment, more harmonious, more synchronous with what you prefer it to be.
and that this has a lot to do specifically with the receiver in your body, which is what you call your brain. As we have said previously in another transmission, there are 3 stages to the idea of the downloading of informational reality and the experience of reality when it comes to the connection and the relationship between non-physical and physical reality. The higher mind, the higher self, that component of who you are as a person, the non-physical side of your consciousness, as is specifically designed to interact with the physical side of your personality and your consciousness, that downloads energy, information, concepts. That higher mind, in that sense, is the conceiver. And thus then, in delivering that information through the brain, which is the receiver, the antenna, the wiring of the brain then configures that download of information in a manner that is appropriate based on the belief systems in the personality, for the personality to interpret, to receive, and to perceive in physical reality, as physical reality. In other words, the concepts coming from the higher mind are translated through the antenna of the brain into concepts that are then perceived by the physical mind, the physical personality, as your physical reality experience. So if there is something about your physical reality experience that you wish to change, the idea is to understand that it is part and parcel of the way you are receiving the information, the way your brain is interpreting the informational downloads from your higher mind that determines through the belief systems that have wired your brain into a certain configuration exactly how the physical mind is actually capable of perceiving your physical reality experience. Because physical reality is really not solid. It is really only the experience of it that is real, but not the physical reality itself. Physical reality, as you have heard for thousands of years, is just an illusion. But the experience of it is real. And the experience of physical reality is determined by the belief systems and definitions that are hardwired into your brain, into your receiver, into your antenna, and thus then determines exactly how you interpret and how you receive the conceptual downloads coming from the higher mind. So, allowing the brain to be wired in a manner that allows for clear communication, clear connection between physical mind and higher mind is of paramount importance in order to know that you are receiving and interpreting the downloads from higher mind in a manner that is aligned with the idea of intention of higher mind, and in a manner that will allow you then to experience physical reality in a manner that is also aligned with that higher vibration, that higher frequency. So this transmission tonight and tomorrow of your time is designed specifically to help rewire the brain in a manner that makes it more superconductive, more hyperconductive, more receptive of the original, initial, intentional, vibrational frequency of the download from the higher mind, so that it can be interpreted and perceived and experienced by the physical mind in a way that is more in alignment with the higher mind's desire, the higher mind's intention. Because the higher mind's intention is always, 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 always to guide the physical experience in a manner that will allow the physical personality to best realize itself, to best express itself in the most fundamental way, in the most natural way, in the way that is most highly aligned with the highest vibration in creation, which you translate as love, passion, joy, excitement. So when you act on those things in your life, the things that contain the highest amount of joy, passion, excitement, you are thus then most aligned with your true natural core being. However, we understand that many times in physical reality, especially on your planet, you are raised to believe things, certain definitions, certain belief systems about physical reality that do not necessarily allow you the ability, the willingness, the awareness to act on those vibrations and those frequencies coming from your higher mind that are most aligned with your natural true core excitement, joy, passion, and love. So learning how to allow your brain to rewire itself, learning how to transform those definitions and those beliefs through many different directions is one way to allow you to become a better receiver, a clearer receiver, of the information from higher mind and allow you to experience a physical reality that is more in accord with that idea of your natural, true core excitement, joy, passion, and love.
And stops us from breaking out into the greater self. That's where they want us, and that's where they've got so many people, the vast majority, in that state, in a false identity. The world looks so solid, I grant you, but it can't be. It can't be, even though it seems to be.
First of all, let's talk about the subatomic world, and then we'll talk about what it's telling us about reality. The first thing I want to tell you about the subatomic world is it's totally a fantasy created by mad physicists trying to figure out what the heck is going on when they do these little experiments. By little experiments, I mean big energy in little spaces and little pieces of time. It gets pretty nutty at that realm of things, and so subatomic physics was invented to try to figure that all out. We need a new science down there. It's called quantum physics, and it is subject to a whole range of debatable hypotheses, thoughts, feelings, intuitions as to what the heck is really going on.
Matter is not what we have long thought it to be. To the scientist, matter has always been thought of as sort of the ultimate in that which is static and predictable.
Within all the atoms and molecules, all the space within the particles take up an insignificant amount of the volume of an atom or molecule, the fundamental particles. The rest of it is vacuum.
What seems to happen is that particles appear and disappear all the time. So where do they go when they're not here?
You now can see in numerous labs around the United States objects that are large enough to be seen by the naked eye, and they are in two places simultaneously. And you can actually take a photograph of that. Now, I suppose if you showed a photograph, they'd say, oh, great, here's this nice blob of colored light, and I see there's a bit of it over here, and another bit of it. So you got a picture of two dots. What's the big deal? And if so, well, look right in the chamber. You can see it right there. Oh, I see two things there. You say, no, that's not two things. That's one thing. It's the same thing in two places.
I'm going to share with you an experiment. How many have heard of the very famous double-slit experiment performed in 1909? 1909. A couple. This is the experiment that began the ideas of quantum physics. It's a very important experiment. Look at what happened. Scientists in 1909 took a particle of matter called a photon. It's P-H-O-T-O-N. They have this photon right here. And they take this photon and they wanted to shoot the photon at this target. Before it could reach this target, it passes through one opening, through this barrier. Okay? So easy experiment. They take the particle, passes through the barrier, goes to the target. The particle acts like a particle. Everyone is happy. It's a good experiment. This is good. Okay? Then they tried the experiment again and changed one thing. They're using the same kind of particle, the same target. This time, the barrier has two openings. Now, they believe that the particle can only be in one place at one time, and they were not prepared for what happens in this experiment. Should we do this experiment? You want to see? Okay, watch what happens. This is a photon, a particle of light. It's the stuff our world and our bodies are made of. So they are experimenting with the stuff of reality is what they're doing. They take this particle and they fire it and it disappeared. And they said, what happened? The next time they saw the particle was at this target, but it's not a particle. It's a wave, meaning that it passed through both openings at the same time. the particle changed itself to accommodate the conditions. And this is actually a drawing. This is from the actual science notebook of 1909, showing what these waves look like. This is a mystery. So the scientists are asking the question, why did this happen? They're saying the particle began as a particle. It began as matter. But look at this. It behaves like a wave. It behaves like energy. And they're asking why. Why does the particle change? They asked this question. They said, who knows that there are two openings possible for that particle? The scientists in the room know. The particle knows. But the particle can't know anything. And the scientists, they say, well, we know, but that cannot possibly have an effect on reality, can it? So here's the question. Who knows that there are two openings available? The scientist and the particles. And this is the answer to our question here. Because what the scientists discovered is that their knowledge, the scientist's consciousness, was affecting the particle in the experiment. The fact that the scientists knew that there were different openings affected the way the particle works. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? Here's why that's important. It's because they are showing that their consciousness is affecting our physical world, and they were showing it in 1909. The observer changed the particles of our world. The observer changed the particles. John Wheeler, Princeton University, made this statement. He said, we had this old idea that there is a universe out there, and that here is man, the observer, safely protected from the universe by a 6-inch slab of plate glass, as he calls it. This is John Wheeler saying this. He says, now, however, we learn that to even observe an electron, we have to shatter that plate glass, We have to shatter the plate glass. So the old word observer simply has to be crossed off the books. There are no observers. The scientist in the room affected the particles. There are no observers. You are not an observer in the universe. By being in this world, you are having an effect on this world all the time. John Wheeler says we must cross the word observer off the books and put in the new word participator. Participator. We are all participating in what is happening. This is John Wheeler. Now that was in 1909. This experiment was repeated again in 1998 in Israel. At the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, look at what happened. They repeated the experiment. They got the same results. But look at this. They found something even more interesting. They found the experiment revealed that the more the observers watched the particles, the greater the effect. The scientists in 1998 discovered that the more we watch our physical world, the greater the effect we're having on our world, just by being present in the world. Well, Einstein said that this is the stuff that made him crazy. Einstein did not like this idea. Einstein did not like the idea that we affect our world. He said, this is what he called spooky science, was the word he used. Einstein called it spooky science. He said, I like to think that a particle must have a separate reality independent of the measurements. In other words, Einstein said, I like to think the moon is there even if I'm not looking at it. Einstein is saying he likes to believe that we are not affecting the universe so much. But this is the big problem that he had in physics. The Buddhist traditions tell us the same thing. In the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, this is a quote from the text, says the same thing, that reality exists only where the mind creates a focus. Reality exists only where the mind creates the focus. Well, this is interesting, because if our reality exists only where our mind creates a focus, the question is, what are we focused on today? So let me ask you, since 9/11 happened, September 11th, 2001, what has been the focus of so much of the world? One word. What is that word? Fear. Fear. The point is this, that through our media, we are being conditioned to fear. We're given many things to be afraid of. The environment is changing. New viruses, new diseases are happening. They say there are many bad people in the world, that the weather patterns are changing, and that very bad things can happen in our world. If our focus is what creates the world around us, and this is where our focus is, what kind of world are we creating?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If thoughts can do that to water, imagine what our thoughts can do to us.
How long has it been since you played? Come on, you got the ball. Take a shot. No, my lady, not from there. It's out of bounds. Gotta be on the court to be in play. Welcome to Duke Reginald's court of unending possibilities. Last one. Never touched you. And it's not solid. This ball is mostly empty.
In fact, the universe is mostly empty.
We like to think of space as empty and matter as solid. But in fact, there is essentially nothing to matter whatsoever. It's completely insubstantial. Take a look at an atom. We think of it as a kind of hard ball. Then we say, oh, well, no, not really. It's this little tiny point of really dense matter right at the center, surrounded by a kind of fluffy probability cloud of electrons popping in and out of existence. But then it turns out that that's not even right. Even the nucleus, which we think of as so dense, hops in and out of existence just as readily as the electrons do. The most solid thing you can say about all this insubstantial matter is that it's more like a thought It's like a concentrated bit of information.
What makes up things are not more things, but what makes up things are ideas, concepts, information.
And like I said, it never touches. Those electrons build up a charge and push the other electrons away before they touch.
L'énergie du ciel est un trésor, teinté d'azur, glacé de rose, poudré d'or. Quand les vagues s'unissent aux lueurs de l'aurore, laisse le ciel, la terre, la mer caresser ton corps.
साहें डरते हैं और शाम बेचारी आती है दिल चुपके रोता है जब याद तुम्हारी आती है
The father of quantum theory, his name was Max Planck. Max Planck made this statement. He said, the stuff of our world does not exist the way we think it exists. Max Planck said, as a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about the atoms this much. Okay? There is no matter as such. What he's saying is the stuff that we're made of does not exist the way we believe it exists. He goes on to say that what we think is matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. He said there's a force out there that holds everything together in our bodies and in our world. He said we must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious mind, an intelligent mind, he said this mind is the matrix of all matter. This mind is the matrix of all matter. If you saw the movie The Matrix, this is where the movie was based from. This information. The father of quantum theory, Max Planck, said that there is an energy, a field of energy that holds everything together, that this is not solid and we are not solid. Belief is the code that takes that field of energy, possibilities, and translates that field into the reality of this world. Belief is the code that translates possibilities into the reality of this world. Here's what scientists say to us about the way this world works. Scientists are telling us now that in this field, all possibilities already exist in the quantum energy, in the soup of quantum possibility. All possibilities already exist. In the quantum possibilities, you are already healed. Peace has already happened. Joy is already everywhere. All of the greatest suffering, all of the greatest peace already exists in the quantum possibilities. And here's what they say happens with you and me. That with our mind, we reach in to those possibilities. We imagine our healing. We imagine the peace. We imagine our perfect relationship. We imagine the abundance in our lives with our mind. And that's how we lock that possibility into place. And with our heart, we give that possibility life. We breathe life into the image of our mind through the feeling in our heart and make it real in our world.
If you were asked to point at something in the universe that connects all things, what would you point at? What would it be? If you had all the universe, everything you see, and I asked you, find me something that connects all things, because you hear that a lot in the spiritual world, and you know, from masters that in ancient times and so on, that everything's one, right? But how? If you don't tell me how, then it's just a concept. It's just a dogma. You got to tell me, how is that possible that everything is connected? Like, you got to explain that to me. Consciousness. Well, that if you say consciousness, you haven't explained anything, because probably every person in this room has a different definition of consciousness. So, what would it be? Space. Very good. Very good. Space is everywhere. It's between galaxies, it's between universes most likely, it's between stars, it's between planets, and at the atomic level, the space is extremely high. Atomic structure, all of your reality is built out of 99.9999999% space. So everything you say is so solid, is so real, that you think of as your reality is actually mostly space. And it's oscillating, and the oscillations interact, and did you know that you actually haven't touched anything at any time, anywhere? Nothing touches? Nothing? The densest atom is like, a molecule is a, diamond molecule, if you grew one of the atom in that molecule, the other one would be 2 football fields away if the one you grew was the size of an orange. That's how much space there is in between them, and then the space inside the atom is 99.99999%. So maybe we should pay attention to the largest percentage instead of the smallest percentage. We spend a lot of time paying attention to the 0.0000001% that we call matter, and we spend very little time paying attention and trying to understand the 99.9999999% of the space. So maybe instead of matter defining the space, maybe it's space that defines matter.
And if you bang your head on the wall, again, like walking through the fire, believing you're going to get burned, bang, you'll bang your head. But it can't be, because the world is made up of atoms, and as quantum physicists have shown, atoms have no solidity. How can something which is basically empty space make up a solid world? It can't. The reason it appears to is because the information in the waveform metaphysical universe is decoded through into apparent solidity. Again, it's just the way we decode reality that gives it form. We take information from a disk, we put it on the screen, it seems to have time-space solidity. But it doesn't. It's just information being read, and that's exactly what's happening to us. The reason it appears solid and it appears three-dimensional is because we live in a holographic world. We see holograms, you can buy them in the shops, where they appear to be three-dimensional, but actually they're not. It's just the illusion of the way they're made. And how they make them is they have a laser, part of it goes across the object they want to photograph, another part goes directly onto a photographic plate, and then the part that's passed across the object goes onto that plate, and they collide. Those two parts of the laser collide, and they create, here we go, a waveform. We call it in holographics an interference pattern. It's like dropping two pebbles in a pond, and then the waves they create collide, and that is a waveform representation of where those pebbles fell, how heavy they were, how high they fell from, etc., how big they were, etc. And this is what the waveform, again, looks like on a holographic print. It's information. It seems to be nothing. It looks like a fingerprint, appropriately, actually. But what is it? But you fire a laser at that, and suddenly a three-dimensional, and the best of them, a very solid-looking image comes up. This is how we create our reality. It's holographic. This guy is in an Australian city, I think it was Melbourne, but he was projected as a hologram onto a stage in Adelaide. This is one that CNN did. So we are creating a holographic version of this information, just like a hologram does, in our heads. That's where it comes from. It's this construct. And how funny, I've been saying this for years, and then I come across this very, very mainstream New Scientist magazine in January now 2009, and its front page, you are a hologram projected from the edge of the universe. And then you have the question, how can something be a waveform and a particle at the same time, which is what quantum physics has found and gone, what? How can that be? Very simple. When you're creating a hologram, the waveform doesn't disappear when the hologram projects itself. They both exist at the same time, the information construct and the decoded holographic form. The particle and the waveform exist at the same time.
We ask the question, who are we? What we know is that we're made of quantum energy. You all have heard that we are quantum energy, yes? Yes? Okay. For 70 years, scientists have been telling us that we are little particles of quantum energy. And now we believe them. But now scientists say those little quantum particles can do miraculous things, amazing things. But the scientists say those miracles have nothing to do with your life. For example, quantum particles, we know, can exist as a physical particle, like this. It's a quantum particle. That particle can exist invisible. The particle is still there. It has just changed its form. Quantum particles can exist in one place in a moment in time. Quantum particles can exist in two places or many places at the same time, and they are always connected. They are always connected with one another. So the particles are always connected. So the question is, we're made of those particles. So can we do what these particles can do? We're made of quantum particles. Are they showing us our limits, or are they showing us our possibility, our potential? What do you think? Are those quantum particles that we're made of showing us limitations or possibilities? I think so. I think so. And I think you'll see why in just a moment. Can we do everything that those particles can do? The answer is yes. But it's based on what we believe to be true. Not what we think in our minds, what we believe in our hearts. Okay, if this makes sense, now we can move on. These are waves of energy. Quantum possibilities, scientists tell us, exist as waves of energy. The waves are contracting and expanding. They're coming and they're going. These are the possibilities of your life. Your perfect relationship is coming and it's going. Okay, let me ask you a question. What would happen if the wave was not coming and was not going? If it was in one place, what would we call that wave? If it's not coming and it's not going? Let's see what this would look like. Okay. Can you see this wave? It is pulsing, but it's not coming and it's not going. Can you see that? This is called a standing wave. A standing wave. It's not coming and it's not going. The possibilities, the quantum possibilities of your life are these waves that are coming and going. The standing wave is the reality. Okay? The quantum possibilities, the soup of all possibilities, are coming and going. But the reality of this world is a wave that is standing wave. It is not coming and it's not going. This is what atoms look like. Atoms are the waves that are stationary. Quantum possibilities are the waves that are coming and going. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, because if it does, you're going to like what happens next. And then it won't be so technical. Okay, this makes sense. Let me ask, our beliefs in our heart produce the standing wave. Your heart produces the wave that locks the possibilities into place. Your heart is what produces the waves that make atoms. It's what you believe in your heart is what locks the quantum possibility into the reality of this moment. Heart waves are standing waves. This is important. We're going to work with our hearts this afternoon.
One of the great things about a hologram is that every part of the hologram is a smaller version of the whole. So if you cut a holographic print into 4 and put a laser onto the 4 pieces, you don't get a quarter-size version of the whole picture, or a quarter-size part of the whole picture. You get a quarter-size version of the entire picture. So because we live in a holographic reality where everything is a smaller version of the whole, that's where we get the theme of as above, so below. That's why the human energy field is mirrored by the earth energy field. Because we are a smaller part of the earth hologram, and the earth hologram is a smaller part of the greater hologram. And on one level, this reality is digital. And they're creating now, and this is extremely relevant to what I've been saying, they're creating now digital holograms that operate in a slightly different way to the holograms we've had before. And some of these digital holograms, that's one, are being used at promotions to sell products and stuff. And people are frightened to walk through the hologram because it looks so solid. Key to holding us in servitude is to keep us in the left hemisphere of the brain. We have two, the right brain, the left brain, and we have a bridge called the corpus callosum, which bridges the two and should pass information between the two. And the right brain, they have very, very different states of being. The right brain is the out there, the creative, the connection with all that is. The left brain is what deals in numbers, in language, in sequence, and puts everything in hierarchical structures and all the rest of it. And what the system wants, it wants us in there. Because when we're in there and not in there, we are there. And the whole system is structured to put us there. The education system, everything. I found this, different functions of the right and left brain. What the right brain wants to do is say the color. What the left brain wants to do, language, it wants to say the word. And it's interesting when you try to go through these and say the color, how difficult it is for many people to say the color instead of the word, to say green instead of what the left brain wants, which is yellow. And the functions of the two are massively different. And what the system wants to do is to put these firewalls up, called education, science, politics, media, peer pressure, to keep the right brain out of it. And this is fundamental, because these things are all part of the defense mechanism, keeping us in left brain reality and out of right brain infinity. Now some people, they call them autistic savants, like this man Stephen Wiltshire. They access the right brain potential in ways that other people don't. And this is why they're capable of fantastic achievements. This guy, Stephen Wiltshire, was taken up in a helicopter over London by the BBC for half an hour with nothing except his eyes, and then came down and drew London from the air with incredible accuracy. Why? Because he was accessing that infinite potential that left brain people, most of people in the world don't. This guy, Daniel Tammet, another autistic savant, has again achieved incredible things, because he was challenged once to learn Icelandic in a week, and it's an incredibly difficult language to learn. I mean, none of the media were using on their news reading, were using the real name of that volcano in Iceland, were they? Because they could bloody pronounce it. This guy went back on television a week later speaking Icelandic. And his Icelandic teacher said, he's not human. Yes, he is. It's the human that we once were and will be again. When this suppression of our potential and our infinite possibility is brought to an end, and this shite stops. And this multi-leveled conspiracy is there to keep that knowledge from us, to hold us in little me mental states so a tiny few can control billions. Without this knowledge, we cannot understand the conspiracy and how it works.
How many have heard of a hologram? How many know what hologram is? How many know what one is? Okay, let me give you an example. This is a very, very powerful principle. The holographic principle is the way that nature creates tremendous change very, very quickly. The holographic principle is the way that nature creates change in large systems very, very quickly. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, there was a bookmark that was produced all over the world. A shiny little strip of foil that had a picture on the bookmark, and if you would hold the picture in the light, the image would come alive. It's called a hologram. There was a face of Jesus. There was Mother Mary. There was a pyramid. There was a flower unfolding. Did you see those a few years ago? Okay, those are called holograms. Now, you can do an experiment. If you have one of those bookmarks, you can do an experiment, but you can only do it one time because you will destroy your bookmark in the process. But here's what you can do. If you have one of those bookmarks, you can take a pair of scissors and you can cut your holographic bookmark into many, many pieces. And you can take the smallest piece, tiny, tiny piece, under a microscope with a very sharp blade and cut that piece in half one more time. And you can take that little fleck, that little speck of the bookmark, and under magnification you will look and the entire image will be in that piece. The entire image will be there because it is a hologram. A hologram. The definition of a hologram is that every fragment of the pattern reflects, mirrors, contains the entire pattern. Every fragment, no matter how small, is a reflection of the entire pattern. This is important because it's said that you and I are holographic in the universe, that within us, the entire universe lives within us. And within every cell of your body. The entire universe lives within every cell of your body. So here's an example. If this is the whole universe, right here, the entire universe, and we cut it in half. And now we take this and we cut it in half again. So now the universe is in 4 fragments. Because this is a hologram, every fragment contains the entire image. Does that make sense? Good with that? Does it make sense in the back? Yes. Okay. Because this is important. If that makes sense, okay, if every fragment contains the entire image, no matter how small, then what happens when you make a change in one place of the pattern? What happens if we make a change in one place in the hologram? If every fragment mirrors all of the other fragments, if you make a change in one place, where do you see the change? Everywhere. Precisely. And this is how you and I may create change in this world very quickly. If we understand the language, because we are holographic. We are patterns of this world, of the universe. When we choose peace in our hearts with the language that this matrix recognizes, peace must happen. when we choose healing in our bodies, when we choose joy in our lives, when we choose compassion for our friends, when we make that choice with the language of the heart, not the mind, the heart, it must happen. Okay. So does this make sense so far? Okay, because I'm going to ask you a question, and it is a trick question. Let's go back to our experiment. What the scientists found is when they disturbed one photon here, this photon acted like it had the experience. So the question is this: how did the information from this photon get to this photon so quickly? Sometimes this photon even had the experience before this one began. And scientists say, how can that happen? The conventional wisdom is that somehow this photon, this particle of light, is transmitting information here like you would a radio wave or like you would electricity. The problem is that the information is traveling too fast. It's traveling faster than the speed of light. And that can't happen according to laws of physics. So the question is this: how did the information get from here to here? And that is a trick question. What is the answer? And you must answer before we go to lunch. It's a trick question. Okay, how did the information get from there to there? Or did it? And the answer is the information did not have to travel. Yes. The information doesn't travel from there to there. It's already there. The information is already there because it's part of the hologram. Remember, in the hologram, what happens in one place happens everywhere. The information is already there. So that is why when this photon has an experience, this one looks like it's having the same experience. They are still connected in the hologram. This is important for you and for me. This is why your prayers are so important. This is why you can send your prayer to a loved one in the battlefield of Iraq or in Africa or in America, halfway around the world, or next door in another room. This is why you can send your prayers, and they are so powerful because the prayer is already there. You create the prayer in your heart, and the prayer is already there. You create the feeling. What it means is that very few people can create a lot of change in this world very quickly if those people understand the language that the field recognizes. And that's why we're here today. That's why we're here today. How do you feel about that? You okay with that? Make sense? Good. Good. Okay. This is a hologram. This is a hologram. Our bodies are holographic. Our universe is holographic. In the holograph, there is no here and there. It's already everywhere. Everything is happening everywhere at once. Ancient traditions describe this experience in what is called the great spiritual mystery. And the mystery looks like this. I'd like to share the mystery with you in the ancient words, and then we'll look at the mystery in the language of science. And you'll see that it's precisely the same thing. The ancient tradition said something that you and I do in our lives triggers a process inside of our bodies. And that process interacts with the forces of creation and affects our physical world. So the great spiritual mystery says that something that we do in our lives affects our physical world. If we do not understand this mystery, when we see it happen, we say it's a miracle. If we do understand, no miracle. Now, it's technology. So this is the great spiritual mystery. Now look at what the science from the experiments, they say the same thing in different words. Look at this. They say that heart-based feeling and emotion changes the DNA in our bodies. When the DNA changes, it produces quantum effects that change our physical world, and we have said precisely the same thing. Just different words. Same thing. The spiritual tradition said something that we do in our bodies changes our physical world. The science is saying heart-based feeling and emotion. I'm going to introduce a word. The word is coherent emotion. Coherent emotion. We'll work with this after lunch. After lunch, you and I will discover how we create coherent emotions in our hearts to heal our bodies and to change our world. Coherent emotion changes our physical world, and this is how John Wheeler, Princeton physicist, says we are participating in the world. And I like this word a lot. This is important because there's a responsibility that comes with understanding the language of the divine matrix. It's not that we control our world. It's not that we manipulate our world. It's not that we impose our will upon the world. We participate. We share in the unfolding of our reality. And it's all done through the power of our beliefs.